Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com, and today I'm here with Dean Crawford. Hi Dean.
Hello.
Hello, it's good to have you back on the show. Just a little introduction. Dean is the international best-selling author of the Warner and Lopez action-adventure thriller series, as well as the sci-fi Atlantia series and other standalone novels. Dean has been on the show before, back in October 2015, when he talked about his move from traditional publishing to indie. And today we're talking about his new non-fiction book called Blockbuster: How to Write $1 Million by an author who's actually done it, which I think is awesome. So I just had to talk to you about this, Dean. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it's a hell of a milestone.
So let's just, before we talk a bit more in detail about the money, for people who didn't hear our last interview, just tell us a bit more about your emotional journey, your emotional arc, which you do have in the book, which is awesome. Obviously the money is not everything. From your wanting to write a book to traditional to indie, just give us a quick overview of that.
It's a long, 15 years from me sitting down wanting to perhaps start trying to make a career for myself as an author to actually getting my first deal. I started in 1994, I think it was. My first deal was September 2010, and that was with Simon & Schuster. Ultimately became for 5 books. They ran pretty well. And then during that process, independent publishing became a thing. And I'd sort of realised about the same time that publishing is a business, and writing a book is the art. Publishing a book and selling it is a business, and I saw indie as an opportunity to give myself more than one avenue for revenue from my books, and make sure that I wasn't utterly dependent on a publisher. And I followed that, unusually for most people at my stage of a career at that time, and it kind of paid off. And I'm now more indie than I am traditionally published, and enjoying it more as well. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I wanted to just point that out to people. Yeah, it took you 15 years to go from wanting to write to getting that first deal. And obviously that was in 2010. We're now in 2017. So your arc from getting that first deal to now being very successful indie is quite short, actually. There's a lot of people who have been going a lot longer. But let's just talk about that million, because a lot of people have like, $1 million. Like, is that from one of those movies, Austin Powers?
Austin Powers, yeah.
Million. But that is a number that is kind of sexy to a lot of people, so I get why you put it in the title. But obviously, if it was $1 million since 1994, that's actually not
great.
It's not great at all, is it? So can we just break that down? Like, how many books do you have? How much time did that take? What's the split between traditional publishing and indie publishing? Just kind of break that down a bit more.
The $1 million is everything I've earned between September 2010, which was the start of the traditional publishing deals, all the way to November 2016, which is when I was actually writing Blockbuster. And it's broken down. I did do the math. It was 2/3 with traditional, and since July 2013, the other third is my indie books. So about $650,000 from the American publishers, and the other $350 all from my own indie books under my Fictum label.
Which is awesome, and I really appreciate you breaking that down. And 2/3 of that traditional is really interesting. So how many books were there in total?
With Simon & Schuster, it was 5 books traditionally published, and the other 15 are on my label. They're the indie books.
Yeah, and that's really...
So 20 in total at the moment.
Yeah. So, and I also we need to point out that back in 2010, people were getting big advances, right? So do you think that you hit a zeitgeist that, with your action-adventure thrillers that is not really available anymore to new debut authors?
Yeah, absolutely. My agent actually once told me, he said I was the last of the big signings for that kind of genre at that time. There's been a couple since. I think some elements of action, adventure, the Dan Brown kind of thing, pick up every time. Well, pretty much every time Dan Brown releases a novel in some cases. But as a genre, it's a lot lower now than it was 5-10 years ago when it was at its height. If you're looking at writing an action adventure novel now, you're almost certainly better off going indie with it.
Yeah, which is really interesting. So, talk a bit more then about the 1/3 indie has been since 2013. Yeah, and you said that you're happier now, you're enjoying it. So, but some people are going to go, but it's only 1/3 of the money, Dean. So, just in a financial sense, why, or an emotional, I guess, why are you happier being indie?
Well, with traditional publishers, you've got to write what the market, or they perceive the market, wants. It's not enough anymore to just write a good novel. They're becoming increasingly polarized, really, and dependent on what people are buying in bookshops. And what people are buying in bookshops doesn't reflect what readers are buying in general. With indie publishing, you can just write what you want and also what you're good at. The big stuff selling for traditional publishers now is very much the Gone Girl mold. Still is, has been for some years now. Girl on a train, girl goes up, girl goes down, girl goes round and round. You know, it's all the same. It's very much linear, and they're waiting probably, the publishers, for the next new thing to come along, which might be Amazonian warrior ninja wars in Brazil or something. Who knows? And I'm not particularly good at the Gone Girl type stuff. It's just not what I do. I did try writing one for my agent. They liked it, but I just had no passion for it. Whereas with indie, I can just focus on what I want. I can write what I'm good at, and there is always an audience for it. Whereas traditional publishers, it's very much a gatekeeper model. We're looking for X. We're only interested in authors that are going to deliver X. And they'll just follow each other's lead. And the same thing happened many years ago with J.K. Rowling and children's books. You know, she did Harry Potter, had a hell of a time trying to sell it. Took over a year. Eventually sold it to a small American publisher called Bloomsbury, I think they were called. Was it?
It was Little Brown, who were part of Bloomsbury.
Yeah, and you know, it took off in America, and suddenly everybody wanted children's books, and that's very much the mold they follow.
Yeah.
So most traditional authors are kind of waiting for their genre to come around all the time, and I come back to them as things go in and out of fashion.
Yeah, and of course, I think you know this, but I target you with my Amazon ads. As well as,
I wondered why I kept seeing them, yeah.
Yeah, as well as Dan Brown. And it's funny because, of course, this is a Dan Brown year, right? I presume you're excited about his new book coming out. It's
Origin.
Yeah, Origin in October. Yeah,
I've seen it. I've not heard much about it, but I have seen.
They're keeping it under wraps. But yeah, good year for you and me.
Yeah, it's a good thing. We can always ride the back off of Dan Brown. You know, he's very generous of him to release a book for us this year. I appreciate it.
I wish he'd hurry up and do more and build a bigger market. But
get on with it. Yeah, he does about one every 4 years now. So.
Exactly, yeah. But just coming back on the, you talked about the Gone Girl kind of phenomenon. What was interesting at London Book Fair this year is that a lot of the talk was they want something new, like the psychological thriller is gone. And I've been hearing in the Facebook groups and stuff, like authors are scared because they've built their careers on the psychological thriller. So just kind of, jumping around a bit, do you think that there's going to be a number of traditionally published authors once this has dipped, this psychological thriller genre dips, are they going to be looking at indie to write the same stuff? Or do you think there's such an entrenched opinion of self-publishing that they won't do that?
I think it's changed a lot since we last spoke in 2015. I think the authors are now aware that it's not just, indie publishing is not this kind of second best alternative that you take because you couldn't get a deal. I think a lot more of them now are actually looking at it as a first move. And if I get emails and Facebook messages all the time from authors launching a first book or a third book, what do you think I should do with it? And while I'm not a lawyer of publishing sort of thing, I often say, well, based on your genre, if you're an action adventure author, go indie. These guys and girls that have been writing the Gone Girl vein type of book for so many years now, I mean, they're going to get dropped like hot cakes. I mean, that's just hot rocks. That's just what happens. Publishers move on. You're their favourite when you're selling well, and then they've forgotten your number by the time you're not selling well again. So there could be a pretty big influx. But the trouble is, what do they do with it? Authors who have been used to being published by publishers, don't have the skills. They can write the book, but they can't make it move. They're going to have to start learning pretty much from the bottom and work their way up. So I think it will affect that genre, but it'll take them a couple of years to catch up, I reckon.
Right. And that's interesting. So you mentioned about genre there, and you have a lot about it in the book. A lot of newer authors don't even know what their genre is. Like, it's often one of the first things that people have to sort out is, what the hell am I actually writing? So what do you say to people? Like you say, people email you and things. How do you get people to recognize the genre they're writing in?
Look at your own bookshelves. Look at what excites you when you walk into a bookshop and you're looking for your next read. You know what you like, and you look at the bookshelves, and then hopefully, you'll find one. You think, that's it. I've got to read it. I've got to read it. I can't walk out of this bookstore without buying that book. That's probably the books that you're going to want to write the most, and that's probably going to be your genre. It does vary. People find, as I did, I started writing action adventure more on the Wilbur Smith historical side, and then found out I kind of more like thrillers. But I had both on my bookshelves, and sometimes, as I think you once said recently, it takes you 2 or 3 books to kind of really find your voice and what you really love. But yeah, the good starting point is what you read the most, very definitely, and then you're going to want to try and emulate that, and through emulation you develop your own voice. So it's a good place to start, as your very own bookshelf.
And why did you move into writing science fiction?
Because I loved it. I always loved Star Wars, Star Trek, but I didn't think I had the imagination to do it. So I stayed with more real world stuff, mixed with a bit of what you think about it. Some of the books I wrote, the action adventure, they've got that paranormal edge to them sometimes. It's kind of science fiction-y. I had elements in there, and then as I grew more confident and had my own ideas and things that I wanted to do, then I thought, now's the time. Now I can go and do something on that front. And it's also a market, thinking business, that had suffered when indie publishing come along for traditional publishers. The sci-fi market just dropped, the bottom drops out of it. Whereas indie authors are doing great. Looking to publish to my own label. What genre do I want to go for? Oh, science fiction is doing really great. So it was also a business decision as well as a creative one.
Oh, that's good, because I think that's important, is actually looking at, the combination of the writing into a market that works, but also writing something that you love. I mean, you're not writing anything just to market, are you? You're writing what you love first.
Yeah, but the only time I tried to write to market was that one book, the Gone Girly type style thing, for my agent, because he said that's what they were pushing, that's what they were looking for. And it was a perfectly competent book. And I've since self-published it, and it's done really well. It's done all right. But the publishers were like, no, it's just not quite right. It's not this, it's not that. And I looked at it and I thought, it is. It's all right, and I went ahead and self-published it in the end, and it did just fine. So, you can't. They have their own idea of their PR departments, and they pretty much decide what gets bought. It's not even down to an editor anymore. PR part says, what are we selling best? Oh, that's what we want. Does this new guy's or girl's book fit what we're selling? And authors often get rejected, and they think the book's no good. And it's nothing to do with it. It's just often the market and what these PR departments feel the publishers spend their money on. A lot of the time it's just throwing stuff at a wall to see what will stick. They have no idea what's going to work. They just don't.
Well, I mean, this is what's so interesting, of course, is no one has any idea, and we all like, even just this podcast, I now just interview people. Well, I always have done. I just interview people I'm interested in and stuff. I talk about things I'm interested in, and I don't even try to hit any kind of zeitgeist. And I'm always surprised at what people enjoy about the show. And you just never know what people will like, do you? And also, things change over time. You just can't. If everyone could predict a blockbuster, there would be a lot more blockbusters.
It's exactly right. It's the first 3 pages of my book tells people who are going to buy a Blockbuster what it won't do. It will not guarantee them a Blockbuster. It will not write the book for them. It won't do this, that, and that's what a lot of these kind of books promise. So I'll do this, it'll work, And I tell them, so it won't do that. But what it can do is shave 14 of the 15 years off it took me to get it right. It's kind of what it's about. It's how to write a book competently. You can't say how to write a good book because everyone's idea is different, but it says this is how I go about it. If you copy this, you will come up hopefully with a competent book, and then this is how you can then sell it to a publisher if you want to go that route, or independently.
And for those of you on the audio, Dean was was shaking his head at the traditional publishing option. So let's talk about writing that competent book, which I think is a good way of putting it. One of the things that you talk about is writing a hook that will grab the reader. And I think this is something that is pretty difficult, again, especially when you're first starting out writing. You often have ideas that are not the hook at the beginning, and you kind of have to think about the hook later. So what are some good ways for people to come up with hooks? And what's the line between originality and genre expectation for a hook?
I mean, the way I started was really just to look at things that had already been done. You're not copying, you're just kind of looking for inspiration. So a strong hook for an idea. One author that's recently made a name for himself, Adam Crawford, had his, it's one I actually quote in the book, you're welcome, Adam, was her last tomorrow, and the hook line was, it's every parent's worst nightmare, so-and-so's daughter has been kidnapped, and you can have the daughter back as long as he murders his wife. That is the hook, in as many words, sort of paraphrasing it from memory. And that's a hook, because you instantly think, oh, how's he going to pull that off? Obviously he's not going to murder his wife, but how's he going to do it? And you're trying to look for things that are like that instantly grab attention and make you think how. And movie posters are a great place to look. They often only have a couple of lines in order to hook an audience, and they'll come up with great things that you can look at and say, well, that's a hook. That's a high concept idea, they call it in Hollywood. And many films, many books are all built around a question or something like that. And the best place to look for it is in the news. Like I say, look at things that have already been done, look at movie posters, and think, well, what can I come up with that is similar to that, but obviously it's my own idea. And then if you're writing in a similar genre, then in many ways, genre is the fuel for the idea. If you're writing as Joe and I do in action adventure, then it's often a MacGuffin. It's the Indiana Jones model. What are they chasing? Is it the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, Atlantis, whatever it might be? And they found it, and that's your cover, and that's your hook line. And of course, you're not going to tell the reader how they've done it. You're going to add that in. That's the story, is how they got to that point. So it's not easy to come up with a new hook, something completely new, and there probably are no new hooks under the sun. It's more variations on a theme. But they are essential. If you haven't got the reader by the cover and the first page, you haven't got the reader. That's kind of the rule I've set for myself.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. But also it has to be something that we're interested in. So you mentioned the Ark of the Covenant, which is great. And when I wrote Ark of Blood, and everyone, I think it's like if you're writing an action adventure thriller in the Dan Brown kind of niche, you have to write your Ark of the Covenant book at some point. It just is. And at the time I thought, oh no, I can't do this because it's been done before. And then it's like, yeah, there's a point that it's been done before because it's a mystery, because we don't have the Ark of the Covenant. So we will never be able to come up with an answer to that, until one of us finds it, obviously. But I think that those genre conventions are so important. Like obviously romance, if you're going to have a happy ending, a happy ever after, an HEA, well, we know the ending. Yeah. It's how do you get there? So I think that's really important. So I mean, how do you know that a hook is good enough? Do you come up with a whole load of them and then choose one, or how do you do that?
I'm writing them down all the time. I mean, it's hardly a day goes by when I don't sort of dream something up, and most of them are rubbish, I find. But every sort of 5 or 6 of them, I write it down, I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, there's something there. You just know. In the same way, going back to the bookshelves and that, when you see that book you've got to read, or you see the poster, the film you've got to see, when you think up one of your own, you just get a tingle. Like a really good song you haven't heard before, and you hear the first bars and the hairs go up in your neck, and you think, I'm going to like this one. That's your idea. That's the one that's going to work. Because if it excites you, it's probably going to excite your readers, because we're all readers as well. So there's just a feeling you get. And when I come up with it, I mean, sometimes I can't stop making notes for hours. It just fires the imagination, bang them off, and annoys the hell out of my family, because doors shut. Oh no, I'm busy. But some of the best ideas come from those things. So it's just a case of working at it all the time. Write everything down. I say that a lot in the book. Buy a notepad, buy a pen, keep it on you at all times, because you'll be amazed at when these ideas arrive, you'll see something and it just clicks.
And you write, I mean, you write a lot about science and, scientific things and, that type of thing. Do you like read a lot of journals or go to exhibitions, or like, how do you feed your brain for ideas?
Everything really. The internet. I'm a subscriber to. I haven't got a copy here at the moment. Focus magazine, which is a British science, all the fun bits of science, none of the boring stuff, and that's monthly, and that comes out, and invariably every edition of that has got something in it that I look at and go, wow, I'll jot that down for a future Warner and Lopez book or something like that. And I've discovered probably a third of my ideas just from that one magazine. So it's not like you have to read science journals or anything like that, or go into in-depth research. That tends to come later when you've already found that hook and that story you want to write. And then you start digging into it, and then it starts getting a little bit heavy sometimes on the research. But and then of course you can't waffle about it. You've got to filter out the interesting bits, and because you don't want to write a physics manual, you want to write an action adventure novel. So it's everywhere. Watch the news. Make an effort watching the news every night. Read a book a month. Set yourself goals that put you in inspiration's way rather than waiting for inspiration to come to you. That's probably the best way to describe it. You just got to keep looking all the time.
I actually think the physical magazine is, I found myself using them more and more. Like, if you go into WH Smith's, which is one of our British, high street shops for Americans, you can see like maybe 200 magazines. So like if you wanted to write a character about a knitter, and I'm not a knitter, you can find knitting magazines, or like a fisherman, and like you're saying, like science and all those things. I think, like you're saying, you can shortcut research by finding them out through someone who's already curated, and then you can go deeper. I think that's awesome, because the internet can be a bit big sometimes, can't it?
And untrustworthy, yeah. It's you have to sort of, if you're using the internet, I do use it a lot. I think everyone does, and Wikipedia especially is good. But I've got the habit now of looking for a second source to verify the first one and things like that, because you can go down the wrong rabbit hole there and find information that's not true. I love that meme that was doing the rounds on Facebook a while ago. It said not everything on the internet is true, and it had William Franklin or something else from 1846, and stuff like that, where it's obviously a falsehood in itself. Always check your sources, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously writing a good book is competent book. Good is in the eye of the reader, in the brain of the reader, whatever. So what is working for you right now in terms of marketing? Like, what are the things that you say have to happen in order to market the book?
It's a big subject, really. Everything. I would say the most important thing in terms of marketing isn't something that you buy, or it's not AMS adverts or Facebook. It's brand. It's, especially in terms of series, making the books look very clearly that they're a part of the same family all the time. Even myself, who I write in two different genres, they still have an appearance. So you could look at it and say, that's a Dean Crawford book. You just know by the way I lay them out on the covers. And that's the most important bit of marketing I think you can do. Backing it up, Amazon ads are the business. So I like Amazon now. Really, they get it right. They always do, and it maybe takes some time sometimes, but they get there, and I'm finding them to be the most useful. But they're only in America. So Facebook ads is something I direct at the UK only, and Australia and places like that. And they're still the daddies. BookBub, well, I know for a fact now that the publishers are buying BookBub slots way in advance. We're not allowed to do that. There's something going on there. It's getting harder to get a BookBub placement unless it's kind of a box set or something like that. So yeah, really, the Facebook model that Mark Dawson and others have done their courses for, which are very, very good. Well worth taking if you've got a few books behind you. Not so much if you've only got your first book, because it's very difficult to market a first book without a lead on for the audience to carry on to. And Amazon ads for anything and everything almost are pretty damn good at the moment. So that's what's working for me. Amazon ads is top of the drawer at the moment. Oh,
okay. So basically having wait, I just got to come back on your covers. Do you still do your own covers? which is just crazy. Why do you still do your own covers?
Yeah, because I can. I see some great covers out there by dedicated artists, and they're probably better than mine. They are better than mine in some cases. But I can do it. I have the skills, and it just seems, why would I bother paying somebody $400 for a cover that I can do myself anyway?
And do you enjoy that?
Yeah, I love it. It's a break from writing. I've just finished doing a touch typing course, so I'm just kind of, like my wife says, I'm like a robot sitting there. The fingers are moving, nothing else. And after a while, because it's new to me at the moment, it changes which muscles ache and that, and so it's great to just get the mouse out and do the next cover. I've just done my next book cover, spent a couple of hours in it last night, and I enjoy it. It's a break, it's different. And I always ask my readers, are these any good? I go on my Facebook page, a fan page, and say, I'll put it up there and say, what do you think, and they're all coming back saying, yeah, love it. So I guess I'm doing it right.
Yeah, I just find that interesting because, I did my own cover years and years ago and it was terrible. So it's great if you enjoy it and they're good enough. But it's interesting there, you talked about learning to touch type. That's awesome. How have you just been pen packing for years?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I'm just putting my keyboard out underneath it. I did touch type in a sense, but I kept looking at the keys and I'm moving my hands all over the keyboard. And I got up to about 2,000 words an hour quite reliably doing that, which is why I can release books so quickly. It's mostly just the speed of typing. But typos slipping, things aren't as good. It's better to look at the screen. So basically what I did, it's an online course, it's free. You can find them anywhere on Google. And I did that so that I could sit in a more relaxed position. I'm not doing this, moving my arms, I'm kind of like that, and build up the speed. And it's taken about a month. But I'm now at about 1,500 words an hour, and it's much better because you can just watch the screen, and every time you see a typo, just quickly backtrack and get rid of it. So you're getting a much cleaner draft with each chapter, and it doesn't hurt the shoulders as much. I found it's one of the best things I've ever done. It's well worth doing.
How interesting!
You have to be strict though. You have to get. I get one of the pillow covers, put it over my hand so I can't see the keyboard, or I'll even type with my eyes closed. Because it's so easy to look down and you can't do it. So I've been doing that for, about a month now. And I've actually I don't use the cover anymore because I've stopped looking at the keyboard.
So did you consider dictation or any other way to
tried.
You tried? Didn't work?
It worked brilliantly, but the trouble is, it's very good. You have to train like Dragon, most people use, and I've got Dragon 13 or whatever it is. And I wrote a whole novel with it. And I'm sitting there chatting away to myself. It's very weird to start with. But I was getting like 8,000 words a day, which is a real good turnout. But the computer program couldn't differentiate between there, and there.
So you had to do a lot of editing.
A lot of editing. And I found that it cost as much time as it gained in the long run. And there were more mistakes slipping through afterward as well. Readers coming back saying, oh, you've done this wrong or whatever. Especially when you've got strange names, Russian names of the enemy, as it were, and everything in there. So I abandoned that. And the other reason that I've done this is because I'm starting to move into the age of marketing where I'm not going to release as many books as quickly as I have done up to now, and really start focusing on getting those books in front of the right people. But I want to maintain the pace. And so, the touch typing course enables me to type faster and more accurately in the long run, meaning I can spend more time selling my books to people who I'm sure just get all of them.
Well, I think that's awesome. And I hope people listening are kind of noting this because you started writing in 1994 and you've learned some skills along the way about writing craft. And now you're doing a touch typing course, which I think is so awesome. So do you think this constant learning is one of the most important things about being an indie or just making a living this way?
It's vital on all fronts. It's why I didn't have a definitive answer for what was working for marketing, really, because everything counts. You can't not be constantly with your ear to the ground. You've got to be aware of what marketing works, what other authors are doing, what kind of books are selling the best, what cover designs are working, because even things like that change over time, and the kind of things that readers automatically sort of drift towards. So you look at some of these Gone Girl covers that we were talking about before, and the books like it, they all look the same.
Oh, they do, yeah.
They all look the same because people want to see that, that kind of read those sort of books. And so you've got to be on touch with everything, and it is a full-time job. It doesn't matter how successful you get. You know, it's probably very easy for people coming in now to start with, looking at the guys and girls at the top and saying, "Oh, must be wonderful. I bet they write one book a year." And you look at them, people like Jerry Riddle, Russell Blake, Hugh Howey, all these people, and they're always advertising. You can always see their books being. They're always doing something. They're running blog tours. They're never sitting still, basically, and that applies to all, I think, genres and authors, but especially indies, because we do it all ourselves. So, yeah, you can't afford to be kind of taking it easy, I don't think.
Well, but you've said that you're going to write at potentially a slower pace, but move into this age of marketing. So does that, what else are you looking at? So you've got Amazon ads and Facebook ads. What else are you going to be focusing on that might be interesting to the listeners?
Well, it's more a case of just getting the books that I've got already out there. I mean, I've sort of become an outlier now myself. Again, I've done it with traditional publishing. Now I've done it with indie publishing, but I haven't even touched 0.01% of the market that's out there. And I very much look up to authors, some of the ones that I mentioned, like Jerry Riddle and that, who have written books and kept them consistently in the top 100 for years. And that shows how big that market is out there, because all these people are just discovering these authors. And people like Lee Child, the Jack Reacher author, who has done very well over his career, and he himself said he's probably completely stranger to 70% of all readers out there. And so it's more a case of taking what I've already got and using Facebook, AMS adverts, trying to run more promotions. I'm so useless at running promotions. I hardly ever do it because I'm so busy all the time. There's always something else to be doing, and really just making an effort to market the lead titles in each of my series. So it'll be the first in series of each one, and just going mental on the marketing. I was supposed to be doing this last year. That was when I was going to start this time last year, and then I had a massive hit. I had my first ever top 100 at full price, and I suddenly realised, I've got to focus on that series for a bit. I've got to keep that moving. And so now it's like, okay, now I'm in a position, I've got whatever it is, 20 indie books behind me, really start getting these out in front of readers. And there's nothing special about it. I can't sit here and say, I'm going to be doing some unique and amazing thing to do it. It's not. It's just nose to the grindstone, like every other author out there, and running more promotions, Kindle Nation Daily, eReading News Today, BookBub if I can get them, if the sun's in the right position and the wind's following, and all these kind of things, and just doing everything, just like we're saying, doing everything all the time, and building a mailing list, all the usuals, and just more of it.
So that doesn't give anyone any silver bullets. So everyone's like, yeah, we've heard all that before. But what is interesting then? How do you prevent burnout from all the things that you're doing? Like you said, you're so busy, and what do you love about this? What are you excited about, and what is kind of a bit of a grind as an indie?
Well, I generally stop burnout using Valium. It's the hardest thing for me is sitting still. I'm not a sit still person. I'm an up and about person. So that's the toughest thing about writing books. Burnout. Yeah, I've started to feel like I'm getting a bit fed up with writing so many books. I can say that honestly. There's only so many, even though I'm a quick writer and I don't find it hard to bring out a book every 12 weeks or so, I just want to do new things. So it's not a silver bullet. I'm starting a new series as of the release of my next book, which is called the Power Read series, and I'm actually doing novellas. I've got about a dozen standalone ideas that I can't shoehorn into a series and don't warrant a series of their own. And I've got them sitting there, all these ideas, and I don't know what to do with them, and I couldn't find a way of turning them into revenue, except to target the commuting reader who wants the shorter read. They're reading on their phone, stuff like that. And I thought, well, what about doing shorter reads, making all these ideas into new books and releasing a book a month? Bang, 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 bang. So I've got them already lined up, by the way. I've already done this, so don't try and shoot me to it. The books are all lined up for the summer, and I'm just going to be releasing month after month, very low price, but not the 99 cent price. And that's been my idea to try and reach a new audience and broaden the reach, and also keep the books at a length that I can still write at high pace. But the rest of it, you say about silver bullet, there isn't one.
Yeah.
There just isn't. Even the guys and girls that got lucky with I mean, there was people that were doing serials back in the day, Hugh Howey, who just took off with Wall serial and that. You can't do that anymore, really. There's no silver bullet. Things come along, Facebook advertising, made Mark Dawson's career. You know, he was doing all right before, but that really sent him sky high. He then monetized that, and everyone's doing it. So it's not a silver bullet anymore. I think the only silver bullet is to realise something's going to be a winner very early on. So anybody who took on Amazon ads really early has probably found it to be a winner. But for most of us, there's no silver bullet except effort and hard work all the time. I mean, I'm probably sounding a bit like a stuck record really myself. You know, it's hard work, but that's just what it is. You just got to keep doing that. There is nothing I can say in a podcast or an interview that is, do this and it'll work. There isn't. Makes you laugh up in an interview, doesn't it?
Well, I just, you know, I know you're. I hope people realise you're quite a chilled out type of guy, as in, you know, you're not going to be like rah rah American about things. But what are you still enjoying? I mean, obviously, what's nice there is you're talking about writing as the marketing. You're writing novellas as the marketing. So, are you enjoying that best about being an indie, like you said at the beginning, the being able to write what you want? Is that still what is keeping you in this game?
Yes, it's still the two chief things are the fact that I can write what I want and make these sudden decisions and decide I'm going to change tack for a few months. And the second thing is that it's so much fairer in terms of what an author can earn. Traditional publishing, I'm the outlier there as well. I've got the big advances. Most authors get maybe a few £1,000 if they're lucky for 3 books, spread over 3 years. You know, it's nothing. They can't give up their day jobs. And then they get nothing in terms of royalties from it. A book that's published for a traditional publisher now has about 2 weeks shelf life. If it doesn't run, it's gone. And apparently, so I hear, I think it's 75% of all published books are pulped.
It's
something like that.
Print books, yeah.
Yeah. So, as obviously those 75% of published books, nobody's going to be earning any money from them, publishers or authors, you know. Whereas independent publishing, you don't need to sell a lot of books to make a really great living. I know I've said this before on the podcast and other places, and that's really what keeps me in. That's what keeps me going, because it's so much fairer. The author has a chance of making a living and doing quite well out of it. People think I sell a lot of books, but really, on the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot. You know, I've got a lot of books all selling moderately. You've only got to go and look at my ranks on Amazon. You know, I've got nothing in the top 5,000, I don't think, at the moment. But yet, here I sit, you know, doing very, very well out of it. You know, last year was a 6-figure year for me in pounds as well. So, I mean, it's an incredible position to be in. And that is probably above everything else, the one thing, even for authors just coming into the game, that is the one advantage. You don't need to sell a lot of books to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Whereas with publishing, you've got to sell a lot of books to even get anywhere. You know, it's so much harder.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, I say this to people too. It's like, you know, I have 23 books or something now as well, and my ranking same as yours. Well, you're higher with your fiction, but you know, across the board, you don't have to make loads of money per book if you have lots of books. So probably the biggest piece of advice is get to 20 books. And I think once you have 20 books, which may sound really big to some people, but hey, what else do you want to do with your spare time? But once you get to 20 books, I mean, I think this is pretty reliable that once you have 20 books, I know a lot of people who have 6 figures at 20 books. So it's, you know, and I mean, let's face it, we don't all need to make the $1 million in a year, right? We, like you've done, it's making it over a number of years and having a sustainable income for you and your family. You've got a daughter, haven't you? So you've it's not just you in one room.
No, that's right. It's you've hit the nail on the head, really. It's about people who are paying the mortgage that couldn't before from their writing, or you know, sending their kids to college or whatever it might be. There's so many authors out there able to do that. whereas before they either weren't selling anything because they didn't have a publisher or whatever, or they were selling very little with the publishing contracts they did have. And that's the big message. I've been that person doing that now for 3 years. I mean, the last payment I had from my publishers, Simon & Schuster, was November 2013. Everything since has been indie, and it works. I've now become an outlier again, so it's not as easy to sort of like blow that horn for people. But yeah, they're the real story. People like me are kind of a little bit unusual, a bit lucky maybe in a lot of respects. But there's so many, and of course you don't see them in interviews, you don't see them on the bookshelves. They're not household names, and yet we're all going, yeah, I'm a full-time writer and I'm doing really great, And you see them on the forums more often, not on keyboards and things like that, where you see these names and they're saying, yeah, I've quit my job, I've gone full-time as an author. And yet we go to the crime festivals and you find out that authors are going back to their day jobs because they can't make any money out of it anymore. So that is, and that's why the indie game is as good as it is. It's, for someone like me to be in a position that I was in, doing so well, to then completely abandon that. It took me 15 years to get into it. I was in it for 2 years and I'm out, because this is better. And so it says a lot.
Yeah, and also the industry change. So I think I just wanted to ask you about resilience in terms of mindset and kind of keeping going, because that big shift in 2012 as traditional publishing changed, the global financial crisis, there were mergers and acquisitions, and that was a time of instability. We're entering into another period of instability. It certainly feels like it. Like, we're in the UK, we've just triggered Brexit. The American political situation is interesting. The news is full of saber rattling and things, and it feels like things are unstable, and so one can see that in the publishing industry too. So what is your advice for people in terms of resilience and dealing with change, and how should they go about that?
Well, yeah, sticking with it is the main piece of advice. I mean, there's not much you can do about these changes we're seeing in the world. I mean, Brexit, big fuss over nothing really. It's fine. We'll be okay. We got through 2 world wars. So did America. Brexit. People worry about the security situation. The EU has nothing to do with security. That's called NATO. We'll be fine. America, God help you all.
Well, this is not a political podcast.
No, it's not. Yeah, nothing. What can you say? I mean, it'll be what it is. What it is. I think Americans like to say out there. As far as writing goes, you've just got to stick with it. I like to put some occasional recent political events into my books to give them more realism and give them a grounding in current events. You just have to ride out these storms, especially with digital publishing. It's the fastest changing industry I've ever witnessed. Every year is different. Be it with Amazon and KU1 and KU2 and things like that, and now the introduction of VAT into EU sales for books and that. One of the biggest things there is that the consumer, unfortunately, always has to absorb the cost, and it's the same for us as authors. When the VAT was introduced in the EU for digital book sales, we all put our prices up. I did. I didn't want to, but you have to do it. And we just have to adapt, but that's one of the strengths of indies. We can turn on a dime. Political stuff, as you say, not a political blog, and publishing isn't a political realm either, as a rule. It survives great things, great upheavals all the time. Writing didn't stop because World War II was on. It still carried on. I would not spend too much time worrying as an author about the greater political or geopolitical situation anyway, because we're authors. We just got to carry ourselves through that and just carry on, and it will settle down. It always does.
And use your anxiety in your writing, I guess. And as you say, if you keep your rights, you have a chance to take advantage of any new position as well. Whereas if you are in traditional publishing, you may get dropped for what I think will be a resurgence in cozy mystery, knitting, romance, and lots of safe and happy things.
Happy stuff. Yeah, happy pictures on the cover. Yeah, you're very much. It's
cozy sci-fi.
Cozy sci-fi. Yeah. it's such a difficult thing to have an opinion on, really. It'll be fine. It's the only way you can look at it. It'll be fine. We'll all be okay. I think there's a lot of worry, a genuine worry, and it's understandable as well. But we've been in worse places. I mean, everyone's heard of, I don't know, think of a crisis, Bay of Pigs. Everyone was pointing nuclear missiles at each other. You know, we've been in worse spots before. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just keep writing your books and keep it moving forward. And we will come out the other side of it. And, you know, hopefully, we're in the digital publishing age. It hasn't even got started yet. You know, we're at the early part of it. It'll ride through and it'll probably get better and it'll move on to other technologies as well, I hope, and we'll expand into other things. So, yeah, don't worry about it too much would be my advice. Keep going.
Awesome. So tell everyone where they can find you and your books online.
Well, my books you can find at deancrawfordbooks.com, and I'm also on Amazon. Very easy, just type my name in. I'm there. I'm everywhere, and I'm exclusive to Amazon as well. So, yeah, that's the only place I'm on at the moment. Or I may possibly start to expand out from Amazon.
Yay!
Depending on how nice they are.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Dean. That was great.
Thanks very much.